Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Brett.
You hit record?
Are we on? Brett, what's your energy?
My energy?
Yeah, and then instead of how are you, what is your energy?
My energy is always pretty high.
High energy, yeah. I like it.
Always pretty high. I like it to be.
Is it as if you had just finished a run, or are you just starting a run?
No. I've already started.
You're in the midst of the run.
I'm in the midst.
Is the first, so I'm not a runner.
When I lay down at night is when I'm done.
As you know, I'm not a runner.
But you're a swimmer. It's the same.
Right. I guess I was going to ask you a question. You just
ask me the question.
Is the first mile, first whatever, fill in the blank for whatever it is, leg, always just a slog for you? Because if I run, like that beginning section is just, can I do this?
No, I would say, because I have created this whole sort of warm-up thing for me, so I start pretty warm. The first mile is not, actually the middle.
The middle.
I find the middle, depending on how far I'm going, right? Like the further I go, because the first part, you're getting into the groove and you're kind of feeling pretty good. And then you kind of hit that part in the middle. And then the end, when you kind of see sort of the end is near, is when you get a little more energy.
Oh, the end, Exactly. I agree.
So for me, it's usually the middle is when I start to.
Oh, okay. All right. Ben, you said you have a little warm-up thing? What is it?
I do a lot of warm-up stretching.
Oh, before you're running.
Before my runs, dynamic, not static.
Cool. All right, I like it.
But we digress.
Anyway, we wanted to bring back some of the episodes that we loved.
Having nothing to do with that conversation we just had.
I know.
But it's okay.
It's a transition.
It's okay.
If we call it a transition, it's a transition. Episode 63. World famous attorney Steven Weinstein.
World famous?
I don't know. Steven is the managing partner of the Miami office of K&L Gates, but what's cool about Steven is that he started there as a summer associate. It might have been his first summer, and he just worked there and still works there, and now he runs the place. And that is so rare.
Unheard of in today's world,
right? In today's world, exactly.
Unheard of.
I think we included the quote in the intro, but he said something like, the firm is still the same. The DNA is the same. That's what it is, something like that. The DNA is the same. Why are you still there? And it's the same because of people like him.
Yeah.
To me, when you stay, if you don't like the environment that you're in, one option is to leave, and the other option is to
change it,
modify it, have an impact on it. That's kind of why I always, when I was at Holland and Knight, I always was very active in the recruiting because I cared about who we were hiring. I wanted to be part of that. Same thing at Hunton. I was a hiring partner. I genuinely cared about the people that were working there, and to the extent that I could have a voice in shaping the personality of the office, I wanted to participate in that. So,
and here's a guy who actually has done that, right? As well.
Yeah.
Who's lived it, and we have the quote: "The DNA has remained the same throughout the firm's evolution, and I still enjoy getting up in the morning and coming to work."
Yeah. Steven's also just a great guy. He's one of my oldest friends. We met basically the first day of law school, the first week of law school in the dorm. I'll tell a quick story. One of my best friend's parents were close friends with his parents, and they had given each of us the phone number. So he had my phone number, I had his phone number. This is back in the days when you actually had to call someone. Of course, neither of us were going to call this other person. I'm not calling this kid before law school. And then the first week of school, the phones in our dorm weren't working, so we had to use the payphone in the lobby, and we're sitting...
Wait, stop.
I know, exactly.
for the listener, there used to be phones that you'd have to stick...
Right, exactly.
Pennies, quarters, quarters into... and make a phone call.
We were sitting in the lobby in line, and I looked over at him, and I said to him, "Are you from Miami?" I just knew he was from Miami. And he's like, "Yeah." And then sure enough, Steve Weinstein, Jeff Bast, I have your phone number. And,
and here you are.
We've been friends ever since. But what's cool about Steve is he's super humble guy, a handsome, fit, athletic, smart, super smart. He and his twin brother,
who, by the way, is super successful in his own way.
I was going to say these two were number 1 and number 2 in their class in high school and in college. Number 1 and 2 in their class, and then Steven went to NYU Law School, and his brother went to Harvard Medical School. So
impressive genes, impressive family, impressive work ethic.
Their father was another legal legend, Alan Weinstein, criminal defense attorney in South Florida, but just a great guy and a great conversation. And I'm sure our listeners want to hear it again.
Yeah. And just the messaging is just fantastic. You can learn a lot. So listen, enjoy, learn.
Nice. Well, maybe that should be our new motto. Listen, enjoy, learn.
We can move those around, I bet, better than that.
What do you want to do? Listen, learn, enjoy? LLE.
We'll work on it. We'll get back to you. Enjoy.
Today we have a very special guest and a friend of the firm. Mr. Steven Weinstein is here today. Steven is an attorney, an accomplished attorney. He focuses his practice on healthcare litigation and commercial litigation, but he is best known in his role as the managing partner of the Miami office for K&L Gates. And what's interesting about Steven is he started at K&L Gates in 1991 as a first-year summer associate and has been with the firm ever since, going all the way from summer associate to partner to now managing partner. And we are really excited to have Steven here today. So welcome, Steven.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Welcome, Steven. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And by the way, Steven is a twin. He's an identical twin.
Fraternal.
Excuse me, I said identical and I meant he's a fraternal twin with his brother David. And the two of them were number 1 and number 2 in their high school class and then college class. And I met Steven in law school at NYU. And at that time, his brother was at Harvard Medical School. So these are two very accomplished young men who have always been overachievers, and they continue to this day.
Well, thank you for those kind words. In the interest of full disclosure, I was number 2. Both times.
but that says a lot because your brother...
On your next podcast, you should try to get number 1.
Yeah. Super smart, super accomplished, as are you. So I don't think you're second fiddle to anybody, but...
And just for the record, we did try to get...
Exactly.
David wasn't available, and so we
tried to bring...
That's how it's been my whole life.
We tried to bring him onto a podcast for lawyers, but yeah, he said no, thank you.
And so, Steven, you have been at the same firm for... What is it, 1991?
Since the summer of 1991.
31 years.
31 years. I started out as a first-year summer associate, came back for my second summer, started out as an associate, rose to income partner, and about 5-6 years ago, they punished me for my loyalty by making me managing partner.
We want to ask you about managing partner, but before we get there, why do you think that is? Like, why have you been there so long?
I still, for the most part, enjoy getting up every day and going to work. I mean, obviously, we find ourselves in COVID times where I am not, nor are most of our people going into work on a regular basis, but it's a great place to work. The firm has changed exponentially. When I started with the firm as a summer associate, we were approximately 450 or 500 lawyers. The name of the firm back then, the predecessor firm, was Kirkpatrick Lockhart.
Right.
There were 5 offices, no international offices, and obviously the firm has changed quite a bit over the last 30 years. We are now under 2,000 lawyers, around 1,800 lawyers on 5 continents, about 48 offices. We just opened up Luxembourg and Nashville. So it's a very, very different structure and firm than when I started as a summer associate. But I am happy to say, and frankly, to answer your question, that one of the reasons I'm still at the firm is because in many ways, it's still the same DNA. We try to attract people that play nicely in the sandbox. You have to want to collaborate with your colleagues. And that's frankly the reason I'm there, because of the culture and the interaction with our colleagues. And it's not just lawyers, it's staff, it's paralegals, it's the guys in office services. It's just a nice place to work. And for the most part, everyone gets along and tries to work together and have fun while doing it.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know about your firm, but I think if you look at the market, I'd say that you're an anomaly, having been in a firm for so long. But I do think that people of our generation probably stuck around longer at where they worked, and there was some longevity and loyalty. It doesn't seem that way anymore. I don't know what your experience is, particularly as a managing partner, What are you seeing, and why do you think, your best guess as to why there isn't that sort of longevity anymore in younger lawyers or maybe hopping from firm to firm?
I certainly don't think it's limited to lawyers. I think our culture has changed dramatically since the three of us were obviously younger. I think it's an instant gratification.
We're still young.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know what I said to my wife the other day, since I turned 53 last week, I said, thank you. I said, I can't believe I'm now middle-aged. She goes, you've been middle-aged for a while. But in any event, I think that I have twin boys that are 22. Mm-hmm. They too are also fraternal twin boys, but they look at me like I'm some type of alien when they think about staying with the same job or living in the same location your entire life. I mean, that's just, I don't think how kids these days or the younger generations are wired. It's so much about instant gratification. And the world is changing a lot more than it was in terms of how rapidly things are changing. A lot of the jobs that kids are looking at these days weren't even around a few years ago. When we were growing up, my parents are like, one of you is going to be the lawyer, one of you is going to be the doctor. The doctor was number one. So I really wasn't given much say in the matter. And there weren't as many options. And I think you're absolutely correct. One of the things we struggle with in our firm, and I think one of the things that you guys probably struggle even in a smaller firm, is people wanting to come in and stay there their entire career. When I hire someone as a summer associate, I'm hopeful they're going to work out and want to be partner. But a lot of times that's not what their aspirations are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every hire we make, we think, okay, this is a future partner. I mean, that's really the calculus we make with every single hire. And, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of turnover with really lawyers or staff. The only, sometimes people don't work out and you have to separate consensually. But otherwise, the only people who've really left have moved to other cities or, went to the government or went in-house or things like that. But I think you started to say, like, when you were a summer associate, like, did you know at that point, okay, this is the place I want to be? Or was it just kind of like, I'm happy I got a job and, let's see how this goes?
At the time, I was 21 or 22 as a summer associate. I certainly wasn't thinking long-term, 30 years down the road, but the firm has always been a good firm, provided, as a young attorney, provided great mentoring, provided great experience, really supported a work-life balance. Frankly, the firm has always cared that, we all have obligations outside the office and they just don't give it lip service. They really believe it. And that was always important to me. Certainly when I was a younger associate and even as a young partner, spending time and being able to be with my wife and twin boys was very important to me.
Right. And when the firm, you said it was 500 when you joined, and now it's 2,000?
We're right under 2,000.
When was the merger, roughly?
We've had several mergers. Yeah. We merged with a firm in London. We merged with the Hughes and Luce firm with several offices. Right? No, the Hughes and Luce firm with several offices in Texas. Preston Gates and Ellis was the firm. I think it was about 10 years ago, and that was Bill Gates' father's firm. And they're a fantastic group of attorneys. They had offices on the West Coast, and at the time we did not. But Seattle is probably our biggest office now.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah.
And when you started, how many are in the Miami office today?
The Miami office is about 36 attorneys now.
Okay.
But at that time, it was around 20 or so. Is that right? Or how many?
We've changed over those years from anywhere from, I think, around 20, 25 attorneys up to around 40. We changed with the markets, with the times. We have a very good mix at this point. We really have not had any turnover at all. And it's just a great group of attorneys. Most of the partners have been there many, many years, and we all like each other. We all get along, and I'm proud to say we're coming off of our best year ever in 37 years in Miami.
Wow. Congratulations
on your management and tutelage.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that's pure coincidence, but yes.
Coach Weinstein.
So as sort of successful as your practice, your group has been, at least in Miami office, I would say, what do you think, without giving away some trade secrets, I mean, what do you think why have you been successful? What are some of the things that you guys have been able to do to keep people long term? What have you seen that has worked, and to really get people to buy in?
I think the secret sauce for our firm, and really what makes us different, is the way that the management really does facilitate and foster and incentivize collaboration on the platform. The days of Miami is not so much as important as it used to be in terms of the geographic location. And I think you see this with all of the big firms and all the big organizations. Where you're situated is not so important anymore. We're sort of deviating, like a lot of firms, simultaneously to practice groups. And the firm does a tremendous job. We have this incredible international footprint with almost 2,000 lawyers, as I said. And we're all over the globe, in Asia and Europe, and all throughout the United States. And everything that we do is to try to provide the very best work product to the client with the very best person, lawyer, around the globe, whoever that may be. It may not be in my office, may not even be in the United States, but the firm incentivizes that type of collaboration. And we do a very good job for the most part of making it seamless, to identify who the best person is to work on a new matter, to get them involved very quickly, and to have integration and collaboration.
So I know for a lot of big firms, that's unusual, right? Like there's a lot of silos at big firms, meaning I'm going to keep this work, or I'm going to only bring in certain people, not from other offices. And that tends to, raise sort of the competitive edge of people saying one office versus another office, or one practice group versus another. So what you're saying is really collaboration has been the key, right? Being able to just pull in people and be able to work together to help the client in the end.
Absolutely. And we do it, I think, exceptionally well. Is it always perfect? No, but the firm really does. It's more than just lip service. Every firm says they collaborate. But I will tell you, if you're a siloed practice, there's some great siloed attorneys, fantastic lawyers with incredible books of business. It makes no sense to come over to our platform. And that's not what we're looking for, and certainly not what I'm looking for when I'm hiring lateral partners. The firm not only gives a lot of lip service to collaboration, but they track it. We have metrics to track it. It's considered. It's a significant.
How do they track collaboration?
I'll tell you, it's a significant factor come comp time. And how do they track it? They keep metrics as to how you're bringing in teams. There's metrics, without getting into specifics, but there's metrics that if I bring in a bankruptcy matter, obviously I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. I'm going to identify who in the firm, in my office or otherwise, is best equipped to handle it in terms of expertise, in terms of availability, in terms of geographic location, perhaps. But I would bring in a matter. I would say, "Wow, Jeff Bast, you're a fantastic. You're down the hall. This is right up your." This is what you specialize in. Could you help me out in this matter? And I'm going to give you credit in terms of opening the file. So and the firm's we are absolutely incentivized to collaborate.
You're incentivized to bring me in, and I'm incentivized to support you.
Exactly right. So unlike some of our firms, some firms that we all are aware of, it's never the type of thing that people say, well, what's in it for me?
Right.
Or how much credit are you going to give me?
Right. So that kind of haggling, which I think tends to fragment a lot of firms.
A lot of fragment, right?
Is counterproductive, but so ingrained in the fabric of a lot of firms.
I will tell you, what really illustrates it exceptionally well is you send out an email on our platform to 1,800, 1,900 lawyers on the platform inquiring as to availability or expertise in a certain area. You will be flooded within 10 minutes with responses. And that's where it starts. People want to work with you. People want to work with you. They want to assist, and I think that's what we're built for. And that's essentially what I think makes us different. And I think from my perspective, that's what makes it a nice place to work. No one's going to stab you in the back. No one's trying to poach your business or steal your clients.
Right. The firm was based out of Pittsburgh, is that right? Is that where it started?
The Kirkpatrick and Lockhart side of it was based out of Pittsburgh.
Right. And so is it still considered to be a home office, or is there just no home office?
We are now based in the United States.
That's right. That's the way it works. But
our chairman and global managing partner are based in the United States.
Right. I do believe that a lot of firms, I think the firms that are home based in New York or started out of New York have a different culture than firms that are based out of, outside of New York. At least that was my experience. I worked at Hunton. It was a Virginia-based firm. I just thought culturally it was just a different feel than a lot of New York-centric firms. And I wonder if Kirkpatrick and Lockhart also had that, benefited from that.
I think you're right, and I think you and I both went to law school in New York, and people that were trained in New York or otherwise practice primarily in New York, I think have a different attitude. Some people view it as a positive attitude. Some people view it as a negative attitude. But the firm does have more blue-collar roots. We don't have any debt. The firm does not carry a penny of external debt. It's a conservative firm and one that really, I think, values the person and the future of each individual.
That's great. That's great. And they made the intelligent decision of elevating you to managing partner. And so I want to hear about that. And I wonder if that's one of those things, congratulations on winning the pie eating contest and your prize is another piece of pie, and so how did you receive that news and how have you managed it?
This news goes back about 5-6 years now. I've been managing partner of the Miami office, and I had been there for a long time, and I think that did play a role in terms of the then management's decision to elevate me to managing partner. But frankly, it's a title, and I have some responsibilities as title, but I don't view it as that I have any more power or less power than the other partners in the Miami office. That's just not how we operate.
As a balancing act, though, nonetheless, right? You have some managerial responsibilities, plus you actually are still a practicing lawyer. So what are some of the challenges to that, and how you balance your time?
It certainly could be challenging, especially this time of year. We're on a calendar year in terms of our budget. And I don't know how you guys do it, but things sometimes get very hectic toward the end of the year with managerial responsibilities in terms of trying to collect as much as you can and putting pressure on people to get their bills out timely and collect. And dealing with year-end issues and now dealing with comp issues. That takes a lot of time, but I'm fortunate enough to be able to also practice law. I still want to be involved with my clients on a regular basis, if not on a daily basis, and be involved in their matters.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to think that, and we manage lawyers, but first of all, I have a co-manager and my partner here, and, we manage 10 lawyers. Managing 37 lawyers as part of a 2,000-member team is got to be more challenging. What would you say is the hardest part of your job? As managing partner.
I am very fortunate that the firm has incredible resources in terms of, I have a lot of backup. I certainly don't do it on my own. The successes that we have in the Miami office and on our platform and the firm as a whole, I certainly would be very reluctant to take any credit for. I have an incredible team in the Miami office, and
is that lawyers or non-lawyers?
Both. I have an incredible team of lawyers. I have an administrator that helps me. We have departments all over the platform that help with in terms of marketing, employment issues. Basically, anything and any support I need, I have support behind me. So that makes it a lot easier in terms of it's not going to fall on my shoulders individually, and nor am I able to take the credit for any successes that we have individually.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you see in today, both as a sort of a manager, but also as a lawyer in healthcare, right? In healthcare litigation, because you're dealing with healthcare, which is a significant issue today, right? And there's challenges there for clients in the healthcare industry, but also you have challenges as a manager in today's world. So if you can sort of break that down for us and tell us what some of those challenges are.
Let's start with the managerial responsibilities, the non-law responsibilities. Yep. I think from my perspective, the most challenging aspect, and it circles back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of most lawyers these days are not at one firm for their entire career. And procuring the talent, hiring the talent, and keeping the talent is very challenging in this market. Yeah. Miami, as you guys know, has become almost every national and international firm that I'm aware of is down here or has plans to become to get down here. And it is a very, very challenging market. There's a lot of firms that are willing to overpay or give guarantees. And, I get resumes pretty regularly. I'm sure you guys see them also coming across your desk of lawyers that have been at 6 or 7 firms in 12 years. I'm very reluctant to talk to any attorney that's been at that many firms because I think it's indicative of something. But the talent issue is challenging, especially in this market. And I think it's only become more challenging in the last year. You see how Miami has it's on the radar screen now in terms of businesses moving here, people moving here with the remote capabilities. I think you see a lot of people coming in from New York and California and Illinois. And it's challenging. Certain practice areas have been challenging also. I mean, you see it in terms of corporate associates. corporate associates are getting poached left and right from other firms with headhunters calling them incessantly. So I find that challenging, and I'm always willing to get on my, be the cheerleader for the firm and talk about culture and talk about professional development and talk about the benefits of having a very long career at K&L Gates and the Miami office of K&L Gates. But sometimes you see people that aren't thinking about 15, 20, 30 years down the road. They're thinking about the next 15 months and how much money they could make or what's in them for that short window.
Who's to blame them? Because at least the last 3 years, right, there's been so much uncertainty. Yeah. And so, well, I don't know what's going to happen in a year or two. If you're a young, just starting out, first year lawyer, like think about what the last year or two has been. And so we're coming at it from a different perspective, right? We grew up at a different time as young lawyers, and it is challenging. It's challenging, like you said, for a number of reasons to try to get the talent and retain the talent and figure out what you can do to retain talent,
And of course, COVID has thrown a monkey wrench in a lot of our lives. I mean, I firmly believe that it's imperative. And what makes us different is our culture and professional development and mentoring. And it's hard to do that when no one's coming into the office. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling now. And I think a lot of organizations, certainly not only limited to law firms, are struggling with how hard to push people back, when to push people back. When we do get back, is it a new model, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, or and how much flexibility are we going to afford? I think flexibility is absolutely imperative going forward. I don't see any time in the near future that we're going to be back like the three of us were when we were younger attorneys, 5 or 6 days a week from 8:30 to 6:30 as the expectation. I think the younger attorneys and a lot of the staff, and frankly, some of our partners are demanding that flexibility. They like that flexibility. They like not having to deal with long commutes. But I do think that it is impeding cultural development and professional development and the intangibles.
And the growth at the, look, law firms succeed over long periods of time by elevating, bringing on recruiting, bringing on junior people and elevating them. And as, older attorneys retire, the younger generations growing up. And that growth is so dependent on what you just said, the mentoring and the interactions and learning and those learning opportunities. And you can't get those in the same way in a purely remote environment. So I think the remote environment is great for the top level, but the bottom level just is going to stagnate and they don't get that.
I agree. But the issue that I'm having is you can't have that bottom level development without the interaction of the top level.
Yeah.
If all your associates and staff are coming in and none of your partners are in, that it sort of defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
And that's a struggle. That is certainly a struggle. Right. And I think, and unfortunately, there's no clear roadmap ahead. I mean, we were doing well in November. People were coming back into the office. We were having nice turnout every day. And then the Omicron hit. Right. And that sort of pushed us. We were one step forward and 2 steps back, and I'm hopeful that that Omicron is obviously fading into the past, or at least getting under control, and that we'll be back in the office. At this point, what I say is I would like to be back in the office more often than not. Right. And that's my hope, because I do think it is important. And like you say, and both of you, I'm sure, were the same way. It can't be a planned Zoom every time. No. You can't plan it. So much of my memories of being mentored were sort of ad hoc, or even by the water cooler or the coffee maker. It's like, oh, I'm having lunch with my client. Just come and join me, or just sit through this meeting, or just walking through the hall. A partner would be drafting a complaint, and he would just look up. He or she would look up and say, "Oh, you're here. Just let me bounce this off of you." And it can't, and not everything could be planned on a ZoomX, on a Zoom or a WebEx, and it's certainly challenging.
Yeah, I think flexibility is going to be key, like you said, and I think we've employed that as well to some extent. But then maybe that requires planning in terms of making sure people are in the office at the same time, so that the younger lawyers and the more seasoned lawyers can collaborate together and have that time, right? So that maybe more thought and more management and more planning to do that, rather than it just sort of happening because everyone's in the office all the time.
Are you guys, I'm curious, are you seeing a lot of lateral movement from within the firm, or people from New York or other offices saying, hey, we want to come move to Miami?
I have not seen that.
No.
But I do know that, and I think you see it in a lot of industries, I do think you see younger attorneys that have reevaluated their life in terms of COVID, in terms of their personal situation and their family life. And not so much in Miami, in my particular office, I haven't seen it, but I do think you've seen people in all industries, and you read about it pretty regularly, that have reevaluated their life and made changes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that also has opened up doors or opened up limitations on recruiting, because the geographic limitations on recruiting are kind of lifted in large part with people who can work remote or are looking to make the move and are more flexible in where they work.
Would you guys, a question for you guys, if you guys came across a fantastic candidate, him or her, and they said to you, I want to work 100% remotely and never come in the office, would you entertain that?
So we sort of have that now, pretty much, with a lawyer who goes between Ohio and Texas and is not here, but for, every so often.
Yeah. But the difference is she was here before. Right. So, but to answer your question, I think with a new lawyer, probably not.
It'd be tough.
I think it would be hard to, for the reason you said, one of the keys when we asked you why are you still there and what's, to what do you attribute the success? You talked about, the first word you said was collaboration. Like, if collaboration's that integral, and I agree, if it is for us as well, you need to be, together in some respects. And I think it would be too hard to, I wouldn't rule it out, but I think it would be very challenging for us to fully integrate somebody
I would say
like that.
I would say before COVID, I would have probably said, no, how can that work? Right now, I would say, well, it depends on the lawyer, depends on the practice area, depends on, why we were considering bringing them on and, what they would be doing, right? Let's say they have their own book of business. Let's say they have their own practice area. Let's say they have maybe even an associate or support staff. It's almost like an quote unquote, an office. Would that work? I don't know, maybe. But if it's a younger lawyer who we've never had in the office, never worked with, I think that would be a lot more challenging, particularly for a firm like ours,
In my mind, I was answering the junior person. You're right. It could work with the senior person who, those interactions are less important. But it also, like for us, we want our senior lawyers to be mentors to the younger lawyers and staff, and leaders. And that's, we expect everybody to challenge each other and help each other grow.
Well, as you said as well, culture for us is super important, right? And so not having people here and just gets the culture kind of a little more disjointed.
I think what we learned in, COVID and working remotely is, can we do it? Yes, we can do it. Do we want to? And should it be a long-term thing? Not really. It can work, but I just don't see how you could do that full-time, long-term, and maintain culture. If you want to have people that are 30-year people like you, I don't think it can work.
And I don't think we know the long-term implications. It's sort of like these kids that haven't been going to school for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
I think time will tell. I think, you could view it from economics. I think you're going to see a lot of law firms that reported their best year in 2021. I think you're going to see phenomenal reporting in terms of how firms did economically. But there's a lot more to the story than just that. And in terms of the long-term growth and professional development and everything that makes the intangibles, that makes you want to get out of bed every day and go to work and come up the elevator, I think is going to be affected adversely by all of this.
Yeah. Culture is so critical to, the success of a law firm. People are there to make money, but if you have people that are there just for the money, they're not going to be there longer. And if somebody's going to a firm because, they want for the money only, then there's always going to be somewhere else, always, that can pay a little more.
I just spoke with a potential lateral last week, and I said, if you're interested in making the most money in town, I said, I'm certainly not going to pass judgment on you at all, but I'm not the right firm for you.
Right. But that person's never going to be happy because there's always going to be somewhere else, someone else that's making more, that you can make more. And they're always going to be thinking that. If you're driven by the dollar, you'll never be happy.
I tend to agree with you.
Well, I think that's a good place to end this. I don't know.
Ending on that, I think, is absolutely perfect.
Steven Weinstein, what a success story. You are an inspiration. I'm going to make every lawyer in our firm listen to this podcast. But more importantly, I think
they listen to every podcast.
They already did, actually.
I mean, come on, Jeff.
More importantly, every lawyer at K&L Gates should listen to this podcast, because there might be a summer associate out there who one day aspire to be a Steven Weinstein and make it all the way up to managing partner.
Certainly have higher aspirations than that, but thank you guys. I appreciate your time. Continued success with your guys' firm.
Thank you, Steven. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star review and share it with your friends and family. Follow us on wherever you get your podcasts, because obviously you're listening to this podcast right now. And if you have any questions or comments or feedback for us, please let us know. You can find our information and Steven's in the show notes.
Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.